For today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different and taking a look back at the 2017-18 NHL season's trade deadline. It was a pretty busy February 26th, and there was some trades that happened, the week following up to the trade deadline. But in today's video, I'm only going to focus on the moves that happened on February 26th of 2018. So without wasting any more time, let's hop right into the first trade that I want to talk about. Starting off the video, not with one of the bigger trades of the day, but one that really just baffled me at the time it happened, and still to this day, such an awful move by the Nashville Predators. They acquired Ryan Hartman and a 2018 fifth from the Hawks for Victor Edgel, a 2018 first round pick, and a 2018 fourth round pick. Ryan Hartman is not worth a first round pick, and even right now, I would rather have Victor Edgel in my organization than Ryan Hartman. Obviously, Hartman has bounced around a little bit now since being a member of the Nashville Predators, and this is really just a trade that didn't work out for them. And even still, at the time, giving up a first round pick for a guy who's most likely just going to play in their bottom six anyway, still kind of a baffling move. But at this trade deadline, there was a lot of teams really just throwing out first round picks left, right, and center, trying to get that advantage heading into the final stretch of the season. A big win by the Hawks in this trade. They eventually used that first round pick to acquire defensive prospect Nicolas Baudon in the 2018 NHL draft, and like I said, I think Victor Edgel is the better player of the two anyway. Fantastic move for the Hawks, and not so good move by the Nashville Predators. Moving along now to a trade that I'm obviously very passionate about because it was a trade made by my favorite team, the Detroit Red Wings, and a trade that I'm very happy we did make at the time and obviously still right now. We traded Thomas Tatar to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 2018 first, a 2019 second, and a 2021 third round pick. At the time, I was like, wow, Vegas really did give up a lot for Thomas Tatar, but I did think Thomas Tatar was going to be great for them and, really good down the stretch and help them in the playoffs. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Thomas Tatar didn't really work out whatsoever with the Vegas Golden Knights. He found himself as a healthy scratch sometimes in the playoffs. Obviously, I was pretty disappointed seeing that as a Red Wings fan. I wanted to see him do well, but now he is in a better situation in Montreal and obviously just had a great season. I think Detroit are big winners of this trade, but I wouldn't really call Vegas massive losers either, because they did end up flipping Thomas Tatar in a package to acquire Max Pacioretty, and he's obviously a very good player and I think is going to have a very strong season for them in this up and coming year. But all of those things aside, Detroit ended up getting Joe Veleno with that first round pick from the Vegas Golden Knights, and Joe Veleno just had a ridiculously good season in the QMJHL, and I honestly think there is a good chance that he could crack the Red Wings roster next season. If not, he's probably going to play in the American Hockey League and get at least 9 NHL games, but even then, I'm still very excited about him. He's one of our top prospects, and especially for a rebuilding team like Detroit, getting that type of package in return for a guy like Thomas Tatar, who is in my opinion a solid top 6 forward, but doesn't really fit the timeline for Detroit and wasn't going to be a part of our long-term future. I'm very happy Ken Holland made this trade at the time. Definitely one of his better moves in his final years as the general manager with the Detroit Red Wings. But now let's move on to the next trade that I want to talk about from the 2018 deadline. Moving on now to a trade that was definitely weird at the time because St. Louis was still trying to compete and make the playoffs, and you wouldn't think they would go and trade a guy like Paul Stastny, who is definitely a player that would help you win games if they were trying to make that final push. They traded Stastny to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a 2018 first round pick and the rights to prospect Eric Foley, and I believe St. Louis ended up using that first round pick on prospect Dominic Bach, who definitely is a good prospect. So I honestly would be leaning towards them in terms of giving a winner on this trade, because Winnipeg really has nothing to show for it right now. But at the time, it was a really smart move because they were trying to go all in and try to make a push for the Stanley Cup, and they had a really good playoff run. They made the conference finals, and Paul Stastny was a big reason why. He had an amazing playoff run with the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, they did end up losing to the Vegas Golden Knights, and then that summer, Paul Stastny went and signed with the Golden Knights, which obviously kind of sucked for Winnipeg fans, but they had to see it coming. You couldn't re-sign a guy like Paul Stastny, especially if you wanted to save money to sign RFAs this summer, like a Kyle Connor and obviously like Patrick Laine. So a smart move at the time by Winnipeg, just to, kind of go all in. So I wouldn't even really consider them losers in this trade, even though they don't have anything to show for it right now, and now St. Louis has prospect Dominic Bach to show for it. I honestly like it from both sides, and I wouldn't really necessarily give a clear-cut winner. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards St. Louis because, again, they do have something to show for it at this point in time. So I guess this trade definitely did benefit St. Louis in the long run, but at the time, it was a very smart move by the Winnipeg Jets. Now, moving along to one of the bigger trades that happened on deadline day of the 2017-18 NHL season, and that's Evander Kane being sent to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Dan O'Regan, a conditional 4th round pick in 2019 and a conditional 1st round pick in 2019. I don't think Buffalo ended up selecting any players from those San Jose picks in the 2019 draft. I believe that 1st round pick was involved in the Brandon Montour trade with Anaheim, if I'm not mistaken. If anyone has all the logistics on the conditions of those picks and where they actually are now, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. But honestly, right now, I think this trade does look relatively solid for the San Jose Sharks. Evander Kane is going to be a great top 6 forward for them. He signed that 7-year contract extension, so he is going to be there for the long haul, and now especially that Joe Pavelski has moved on and is now playing with the Dallas Stars, and they lost forwards like Jonas Donskoy, Gustav Nyquist. I think Evander Kane is going to have a bigger role, and I think there is a strong chance that he has a very good offensive season in this upcoming year with the Sharks. So honestly, looking back at this trade now, it still seems like a relatively smart move for the San Jose Sharks, especially since they are a team that is still trying to contend for a Stanley Cup. Moving along now to the biggest trade that happened on this deadline day, and that was Ryan Mcdonagh being acquired by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And after I'm done talking about this trade, I will quickly go over on some of the smaller trades that happened throughout the day. But getting back to this, Ryan McDonagh and JT Miller acquired by the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Vladislav Namestnikov, Libor Hajek, Brett Howden, a 2018 first, and a conditional 2019 second round pick. Hopefully I said Hajek's name correctly there. I know New York Rangers fans will probably get mad if I didn't. But nonetheless, I honestly think this trade looked bad at the time for New York because they gave up JT Miller too, and I honestly thought Miller was the better player out of him and Namestnikov. But they were heading in a rebuilding direction. They needed a little retooling, and looking back at this trade now, I think it makes a lot more sense for New York than I would have thought it did at the time, because now looking at some of the other pieces that they got, Brett Howden is looking like he is going to be a very good part for the future. He had a very solid season this past year. Same goes for Libor Hajek. I think he is going to be a part of their long-term future. And they also ended up packaging that 2018 first-round pick to move up in the draft, and then they ended up selecting defensive prospect K'Andre Miller with the 22nd overall pick in the 2018 NHL draft. And in my opinion, K'Andre Miller has the potential to be a very good top 4 defenseman in the NHL, and if he pans out, and then you have a defensive core in the future of guys like DeMello, and then you have Brady Shea still there, Jacob Trouba, Adam Fox, and K'Andre Miller, that is the makings of a very good defense core. And obviously now it does make sense that they traded guys like JT Miller and like Ryan McDonagh, because with all that money that they saved, they ended up signing Artemi Panarin and then trading for and signing Jacob Trouba. So everything really worked out in the long run for the New York Rangers in this trade. And also looking back at it now from Tampa Bay's perspective, it was still a move that I think if they went back in time, they would do it again, because McDonagh was fantastic for them this past season, and he most likely is going to be a big part of their defense core in the next couple of years. And they're a team that is trying to compete for a Stanley Cup, and when you're trying to do that, you trade away future assets to bring in guys that are going to help you win now, and that is exactly what they did. They did end up trading JT Miller though to save some cap, because they do have to sign guys like Braden Point, and then obviously Vasilevsky's massive contract kicks in next summer, but they do have a first round pick in either this up and coming draft or the 2021 NHL draft to show for JT Miller. So this is definitely a trade that I can say with confidence that honestly both teams made out pretty well. So now that I've went over all the big trades that happened on the deadline day of the 2017-18 season, I'm going to talk about some of the smaller trades. I'm not going to touch on any of the trades that were basically just involving minor leaguers in this video, because no one really wants to hear about that. But now getting into some of the smaller NHLers, Ian Cole was acquired from the Ottawa Senators by the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Nick Motry and a 3rd round pick in the 2020 NHL draft. The Winnipeg Jets also acquired Joe Morrow from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a 2018 4th round pick. The Canadiens acquired Mike Riley from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a 2019 5th round pick. The New Jersey Devils also acquired forward Patrick Maroon from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for a 2019 third, and then the Columbus Blue Jackets acquired Thomas Vanek from the Canucks in exchange for forwards Tyler Mott and Jussi Jokinen. I think everyone has to be in agreement that Vancouver won that trade, but that basically wraps up all the trades that involve notable names at an NHL level. Like I said, there was some trades heading up to trade deadline day, and I'm only talking about the ones that happened on that day in this video, so if you go down in the comment section saying, oh, what about this move, it most likely didn't happen on deadline day of the 2017-18 NHL season. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy this kind of different style. If you want to see more videos like this, closing out the summer, make sure to let me know down in the comment section. I'll be sure to try to think of some cooler ideas. And also, if you guys are not already, make sure to click on the links in the description and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. You can definitely tweet at me through a lot of the games in this up and coming season on Twitter. That's a cool way to interact with you guys. And I'm also starting to use Patreon a lot more. We currently have 3 patrons, and I believe the first 12 or 11 are going to be in a fantasy hockey league with me in this up and coming NHL season, so that should be pretty exciting. I'm also going to start doing a lot of giveaways on there once we get up over 10 patrons, so there's a lot of cool things happening right now on the channel. Thank you guys so much for all the support lately, and if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.